Hello, you're listening to Storytelling Saga, the podcast that shares stories. I'm your host, Allie, and this week I'm discussing Kiki's Delivery Service. So, I hadn't seen this movie in a really long time, since I was probably around 13, Kiki's age, coincidentally. But this is such an absolutely lovely movie, and it kind of felt like, in a weird way, watching it for the first time, since I surprisingly remembered very little of it, besides a few key things, since I used to watch this movie a lot when I was younger, with my siblings as well, and it was originally released in Japan in 1989, so 30 years ago, and it was written and directed by Hayao Miyazaki, and he is a famous animator in Japan. He's created so many beloved films, but me personally, this is the only one that I am familiar with, but I feel like I'm missing out. I need to check out more of his films for sure, because it's just so absolutely beautiful. And the themes of this movie are absolutely universal and timeless, but so specific to coming of age and growing into adulthood. And I also will say, though, that, which I probably should do this at some point, I've never actually seen the original Japanese dub of this film. I've only ever watched the English dub. And I don't even know, it must have been my cousins who told me about it, because anything related to anime, it always stemmed from, for the most part, from my two cousins who were really into anime when we were younger. And just one of my fondest memories, specifically with this movie, was when we brought home our cat, who has since passed away, but I'm very emotional right now having seen this movie, my goodness. But when he was just a little kitten, and we were just so excited, and it was at the beginning of summer, and then we were just really into this movie at the time, and then we had watched it for however many times we had seen it. We just watched it again that day with our new kitten. Like, it was just so that's just a nice memory that made me think of that, having watched this now. Yeah, so if you could tell, I'm like emotional, because watching this too, I just kind of went through quite a few emotions, because this really is just such a very beautiful, very tranquil feeling film. There's just something about it, and the music specifically. The music is done by Joe Hisaishi. I really love the music in this film. That too, I remember learning one of the songs from this movie, like the Kiki's Delivery theme, on the piano. And also I remember my cousin singing the song, and she has a lovely voice. So just all of these lovely memories came back watching this movie that I hadn't seen in 15 years or so. And, of course, our protagonist is Kiki, and she is a young witch, and she is going out on her own for the first time to train, because, as is customary for witches, that when they turn 13, they have to go out on their own for the first time to hone their skills. So the opening of this movie, where she's just lying in the grass, and she's listening to her dad's radio, and just in that open field, and it's like the open and endless possibilities for her. And she has such loving, sweet parents. And what's interesting too, though, just having watched this now, was me realizing, oh my goodness, this voice actor is in this, and this one, and that one. That was just funny, because I didn't notice any of that when I was younger watching this. But, for instance, that Katsushi plays her mom, or Jeff Bennett plays her dad, and of course Kirsten Dunst plays Kiki, but Katsushi, just so many endless roles. And then the late Phil Hartman plays Jiji, Kiki's cat. My siblings and I loved Jiji when we were younger. Oh man. And I still love Jiji. I love Jiji, oh my goodness. He's just so adorable. Just the tiny black cat. And yet he's got such biting sarcasm and that dry wit to him. So he's just a great character. Oh man. And it's that great dichotomy with the dynamic between Kiki and Jiji. How Kiki has her head in the clouds in a sense, but she's just very optimistic and excited to be going out on her own for the first time. It's all new to her and what adventures await her. And then you have Jiji there, kind of like the subconscious and just voicing all of those realistic things that you need to think about. So just kind of dampening the optimism, but for Kiki, that doesn't derail her by any means. And they do have that lovely back and forth, and Gigi's her best friend. So I do love their relationship, that he just kind of is there to keep her from flying too close to the sun, so to speak. But it's sweet, though, when she's getting ready to leave and she asks her dad if she can take his radio. And like I said, so many things I just didn't remember with this movie, so I didn't remember much of that. But I did absolutely remember the song when she's just flying in the night sky and it's just a clear night and she's got the full moon and she's using her mother's broom, though, because she had made her own broom, but then her mother insists that she takes her broom because it's reliable. And Kiki, though, is saying, oh, but it's old, Mom, but then she takes her mom's broom, and then she's got her dad's radio, and she asks Jiji to turn it on. It's like, oh, no, I'm the flight attendant. But he turns it on, and you got that song, I'm Soaring, and it's just so lovely, the lyrics. Don't know where I'm gonna land, but you gotta wobble before you stand. I'm soaring, all alone and on my own. I'm soaring, and I know my heart will lead me home. That's beautiful. But then when Kiki sees another girl flying, and that girl's kind of snooty, it's like, oh, well, I'm a fortune teller, and you're new, aren't you? And she's like, well, that's my town. Oh, it's really beautiful. And everything's just so wondrous to Kiki. And then when they go into the train, and she's just, let's just get some sleep. She just pulls the hay over her like it's a blanket. And she's just very excited to be on her own for the first time. But even before, when she was getting ready, though, and she's kind of looking at the dress she's wearing, just that dark purple dress, and she's saying, oh, I wish it was lavender, or I wish I had something not so plain. But then her mother assures her that it's not what you wear that matters, it's what's inside your heart. And then when she goes to that town, and it's so beautiful to her, and she's just caught up in, oh, like when she's saying, oh, Jiji, the buildings are so beautiful. There's just so many beautiful buildings. And then Jiji just says, yes, there are a lot of buildings. Just to the point. Yep, there are a lot of buildings. Very matter of fact. I got a kick out of that for whatever reason. And then when everyone's just kind of like, oh, in awe that there's a witch. And when she asks the guy at the clock tower, and he says, no, there hasn't been a witch here in a very, very long time. And then she decides then this is where we're going to stay. Then she kind of just causes a little bit of mayhem when she's just in the street and she needs to figure out how she's going to navigate this big city. But then she's just so happy to be there. And then when she's just talking to the random city folk and just saying to them, like, oh, you have such a beautiful city. And then they all just kind of stare at her. And then they're like, oh, that's very nice, dear. And they just disperse. Like, they don't know what to make of this young witch. She's just very peculiar to all of them. So then it's kind of dampening her spirits a little bit because people aren't as friendly as she would have hoped, but she's just caught up in the beauty of the city. And then the police officer comes and says that he's going to write her up because she was just in the middle of the traffic. And then you hear someone saying, oh, help, help, someone's stealing something. And then that kid, Tombo, is just saying, oh, hey, miss, you're a witch, aren't you? Oh, that was me saying that before. Pretty cool idea, huh, to get rid of the cop. And she just is kind of like all in a huff that like, it's not very polite to speak to a girl when you haven't even introduced yourself. And then Tombo's friends, they're kind of teasing him, saying, oh, maybe you could sweep her off her feet with that broom. So Tombo's a great character. He's played by Matthew Lawrence, And it's funny that, first of all, he looks like Where's Waldo? The red and white striped shirt, the glasses. But, so even though he's like a doofy kind of kid, he's absolutely just a really genuinely nice kid, sweet and upbeat, and so excited to meet Kiki. Like, oh wow, you're such a cool broom. He's just so excited to meet a witch and eager to get to know her, even though she brushes him off. But even though he is kind of a dweeb, I like that he's not an outcast, even though his friends were teasing him. That's the thing, he has that group of friends. He's not just some stereotypical, nerdy, dorky character who is made fun of. So I like that. He's got his own sense of confidence, and he's got his passions with aviation and him riding his bike, and how he sees Kiki as this absolutely cool girl because she can fly. So even though he's excited and he's just really wanting to get to know her, and then she just brushes him off, but so it goes. And then she meets the woman who owns the bakery, Osono, played by Tress MacNeille. And that's funny too, like I recognized her voice right away as well. She voices so many characters too. Then when she walks out of the bakery, she's got the pacifier, and she's saying, "Oh ma'am, you forgot your pacifier." And then Kiki says, "I could deliver it for you." So she takes the pacifier to the baby, and the little baby starts crying, and then perfectly Kiki's there to give him the pacifier, and then he just takes his pacifier to the little baby, and then the mom looks at Kiki and she just starts laughing. They both start laughing. And then when she goes back to the bakery, and Sono thanking Kiki, and Kiki gives her a note that the woman gave her saying, "Oh, thank you so much, your delivery girl was so helpful." So Sono kind of becomes like this mother figure to Kiki. She lets her stay in that upstairs room. First, Kiki's saying, "Well, people aren't exactly friendly here. I'm kind of hoping that they would warm up to the idea of a witch in their town." And Sono saying, "Hey now, not everyone's like that. Look, I just met you and I can tell I already like you." So she's just that absolutely friendly, warm, welcoming person that Kiki needs. And they make a deal that she can stay up there and help around the bakery, and then Kiki gets the idea that she can start her delivery service. So she's got a nice little setup for herself, Kiki. And it's funny too, though, when they're in the room and Sono says, "If I weren't about to have a baby, I'd help you clean up," because the room is just all dusty. And then after she leaves, then Jiji says, "This isn't dust, it's flour." And then his little paw prints walking across the floor, and he just says, "If you see a white cat tomorrow morning, it's me." And then, so that just reminds me of one of the few lines I remembered perfectly from this movie, because my siblings and I absolutely loved it so much for whatever reason, when they go shopping and then they're at the grocery store. And then Jiji sees a mug of a black cat on it, and he just says, "Kiki, look, it's me." For whatever reason, we found that absolutely hysterical, my siblings and I. I guess the delivery of it, I don't know, but so that just kind of made me smile again, because I just immediately remembered it. I was like, "Oh, yep, it's me." Jiji, I don't know, with the black cat must have been, even though she doesn't have much money, she still buys that little black cat mug, so that's really cute. And then her first delivery, though, is delivering that present to the woman's nephew. And the present is just bizarre because it's in a bird cage, and it's coincidentally a stuffed black cat that looks exactly like Jiji. So when he sees it, he's like, "Oh, it's me." Like, again, anything's just a black cat. It looks exactly like Jiji. And then when they go flying, and she gets her map out, Kiki, that she purchased, and then she keeps going higher and higher, and Gigi's like, "How high are you gonna go?" It's like, "There's a plane underneath us." And she's like, "This is as high as we'll go, Frady Cat," because she wants to do a good job. And she's just very honest and a hardworking young girl. And even when the woman, she asks her how much, and she says to her, "Oh, I never thought of a price." And then she says, "Well, I hope this will be enough." And however much it is, she just says, "Oh no, this is too much." But she's just very grateful. So she's always willing to work for what she's doing, not just taking favors or feeling like she hasn't earned it. So that's very respectable. So then when they're flying and then they end up, because of a gust of wind, because Jiji can somehow understands the geese that are squawking. He's like, oh, they say a gust of wind's coming. Oh, goodness. And they end up in the forest, and that bird is squawking at them because it thinks it's after its eggs in the nest, and Kiki's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to steal your eggs, because she flies down there in time to catch the cage. And then since the toy is missing, Kiki gets the idea to just put Jiji in the little cage for the time being until she can go back and get the stuffed toy. And then Gigi's saying, well, how about you be the stuffed toy and I go get the thing? But then she goes to the house, and then the woman's saying, oh, you're a little late, because it's her first delivery. But she's saying, oh, I'm sorry, I got caught up in a gust of wind. And then she delivers the toy to the little boy, Ket, whose voice I recognized as well. He's voiced by Pamela Adlon. And then he's like, oh, what did Auntie send me? He's like, oh, it's a stupid toy, but he's kind of amused by it, though. And Gigi's acting like a stuffed toy. And he's just so rigid, though, and the kid, shakes the cage, and then Jiji. And then there's that dog, Jeff. Oh, and it's so funny when Gigi's sweating, nice doggy, after the kid walks away because the guests will be arriving soon for his birthday party. So then when Gigi's there on the ground, and then the dog just licks him and then just snuggles up to him. So cute. Oh my goodness. And then meanwhile, when Kiki goes back to get the toy, and then the toy ended up with the birds, and then it's in this house in the woods that she just stumbles across. She's saying, excuse me, anyone here? And then the person's saying, I'm up here. And then it is this woman named Ursula, played by Janine Garofalo. And she's just concentrating on her drawing, and Kiki's just trying to get her attention, really, saying, oh, that stuffed black cat in your window is mine, I need it back. But she's just sketching her birds. And then finally she says, when she goes to give her the toy, and then Kiki sees that its head is tearing off, and she's saying, oh, sorry, the birds are really pecking at it. And then she's saying, I can't deliver it like this. And then she says, all right, I'll make you a deal. So then Kiki's scrubbing the floors, and Ursula is stitching up the toy. Afterwards, when Kiki brings the toy back, and she says, oh, that girl wants to even draw me. And it's funny, too, how Jeff, the doggy, helps Jiji. He goes outside, the kid opens the door to let the dog outside, and then Gigi's like, oh, my friend Jeff helped me escape. And he says, Kiki, if we ask nicely, he'll take the stuffed cat back inside. He's a good dog. And so cute. He just takes it back inside. He's an old dog, but what a cute doggy. Oh my goodness. Aww. And then meanwhile, with Kiki's booming delivery service, she still has those moments where, for instance, when those girls pass by when she's walking on the street and she thinks to herself, I wish I had nice clothes. She's still kind of feeling those typical feelings that teenagers go through, since she is 13 years old, when you are especially self-conscious of your faults and insecurities, and for her that she feels plain and thus feeling like an outsider. But that's the whole thing, that she's gone away, left from home, because she's trying to figure out her skills as a witch. And then Tombo shows up again, this time when he goes to the bakery, and then he invites her to this aviation party. And she doesn't exactly, he has the invitation, that's just really cute too. All sealed up in an envelope, and it says Miss Witch. That's just cute. And then she doesn't exactly accept, but she doesn't have time to, because then someone shows up with a heavy package that needs to be delivered right away. Gosh. And then she gets that job done. And then, though, when she goes to her next delivery job, and the sweet elderly woman that has that herring pie that needs to be delivered to her granddaughter. And then first she's saying, I'm sorry I made you come all this way, dear, because the oven's not working. And then she says, well, how about that old oven? And then she gets the firewood, and she's just helping her out. It's like, oh, well, look at that. Your mother must be so proud that she's just using her ingenuity. And then she helps around the house while the pie is baking, changing the light bulbs. just an absolutely extremely helpful young woman. And then the woman is so grateful. It's like, this is for you, dear, like giving her the money. She says, oh no, it's much too much. And then after all you've done for me, it's the least I can do. And then that woman's, I don't know who she is exactly, her housekeeper or her aide or whomever, but her name is Barsa. Oh, and Madam, too, I recognized her voice because she's voiced by the late Debbie Reynolds. And then when she goes to deliver that herring pie to that elderly woman's granddaughter, and Kiki, meanwhile, is racing against the clock because she wants to go to that party that Tombo invited her to. And then when it starts raining, he's like, can we at least get out of the rain? She's just determined, like, no, then the food will be cold and will be even later. And then when she arrives to the granddaughter's house to deliver the food, and then the granddaughter is just an absolutely despicable, ungrateful person. Just, oh, another one of Grandma's gross herring pies. Like, oh my God, I was raging. I remembered that. So I was like, oh God, you terrible little... different word for witch. Rhymes with witch, you know. Ugh. And then Jiji just, I can't believe they're related. And he just sticks out his tongue like, yep, ugh. Garbage human being, that girl. How dare you? How dare you? God. Because that woman is like an absolute angel going through all that trouble for her ungrateful granddaughter. Okay, I'm done. But meanwhile, though, poor Tombo waiting in the rain and he's all dressed up. What an absolute gentleman he is. And he just waits patiently, but then finally he leaves after a long time waiting in the rain, just with the umbrella. And then poor Kiki, when she just finally arrives back, and Osono saying, Kiki, we were worried sick about you, and that poor boy waited so long, and she says that it doesn't matter, I can't go in these wet clothes anyway. And that's really a turning point in her uplifted spirits that really are dampening now, seeing that ungrateful girl and the fact that she missed out on her own social event and just doing something for herself. And then when she's feeling under the weather the next day. But then things start to perk up again a little bit when Osono asks her to make another delivery. And then this time she doesn't take her broom, and then she also doesn't take Jiji. Like, first she was saying, oh, we have a delivery, and then he's too busy with his that white female cat, Lily, so he's courting her. So then she just goes herself to deliver to someone named Kapori, and then when she goes, and then he's like, oh, my name's Kapori, so his last name. And so she delivers to him, and then she's saying, I'm sorry I didn't make it yesterday to the party. He just like shakes his head like, no, I'm sorry you had to be sick like that. And then he shows her what he was working on, that was the whole reason for the party. And it's just the bicycle with the propeller attached to it. Really early aviation type invention of his. And then they go for a ride, and you see the one guy's laughing at them at one point, but not mean-spirited, though. He's just laughing like he just gets a kick out of it. Like, oh, look at these two young kids kind of blossoming seedlings of love between them, and they're just off on this little contraption. So he's just laughing good-heartedly. Then when he starts pedaling, and Kiki's saying how she'd never been on a bike before, but then he's just saying, oh, it's fine, you'll like it. And then when he's just telling her what to do, like, you gotta lean in with your weight, because otherwise we won't make this turn. And then he's saying how they make a great team. Then they kind of ride too close into an oncoming car, and they just catch some wind, and they kind of fly a little bit. And he's taking her to see a dirigible, a blimp, and then they're just kind of opening up a little bit. When he's just saying it's so cool that you can just fly anytime you want, but me, I've got my my bike. And then his friends show up saying that they can go for a ride on the blimp, but at first they're just kind of like, sort of mocking Kiki, like, oh, who's your friend? And then that's another turning point for Kiki, when first he's inviting her, oh, come on, we're going to go on the blimp, and she's saying, no, thank you, please just leave me alone. And then he doesn't understand why she's mad, and then the friends are saying, oh, we must have hurt her feelings, and they can't believe, oh, a girl working at her age? So it's like they don't understand her. And then it's just kind of like the downer moment for Kiki when she answers the phone and Tombo's going on, excited to talk to her, saying how it was so cool that they got to ride the blimp. And he's like, Kiki, you there? She's saying, please don't call me. And she just hangs up. And she hung up, like he can't believe it. He's just so pure and a bit naive and really sweet though. And now poor Kiki, all the things she had taken joy in, she's losing all of that now. When she's up in her room, she turns on her dad's radio, which was basically always this source of comfort and happiness for her, just excited to listen to music or the news. And then she just turns it off and she just face plants into the bed. And then when Jiji shows up and he's just meowing, and then she's saying, oh, and why are you meowing like a cat? And then he's like, meow, meow, and he just licking the pancakes. He still comes to eat, and then he just goes back out. He's too busy with Lily now, his girlfriend. And then she's like, Jiji, you don't speak English anymore? And then she's like, oh no, does that mean? And then she takes the broom and she's trying to fly, and then she just keeps crashing to the ground, and then she just says, I'm losing my witch's powers. And then she tries again outside. And so it becomes that thing where with your self-doubts, where something she took for granted, flying, and now she's questioning herself and she's losing her witch's powers and saying, if I don't have my witch's powers, I don't have anything. And it seems like no one can turn around her mood, not even a Sono, who's just still always comforting and saying, oh, sorry, dear, how can I help? And that just reminded me with Sono and her husband, who doesn't talk much, but he's always helping out around the bakery. And a really sweet moment with the husband is earlier when Kiki's delivery service was taking off, so to speak, and really thriving. And then to advertise it in the bakery window, they had the little wreath with Kiki's delivery service, and you see Kiki on the broom with Jiji. And then when you don't hear any dialogue, and it's just great, just her rushing inside, and you see her talking to Asono, and then Asono clearly says that it was her husband that did that, and Kiki just throws her arms around him so excited. It's just really sweet. So that nice support is very cute. But unfortunately with Kiki now feeling like she has nothing, because if she has no ability to fly, she feels she has nothing, then the only person that really draws her out of it and gives her the advice she needs is Ursula. So Ursula really is that big sister figure for her, because she's older and living on her own. And then when she shows up and saying how she figured since Kiki didn't come to her, she decided to go to Kiki. And then she says, well, how about we get out of here? And how about you, Jiji? And then Gigi's just like, meow. And she's like, oh, too busy with your girlfriend, huh? And Kiki's just so hospitable, just so cute. She's like, oh, here, you can have some of these, like the little treats. And then she's like, I'll make you some tea. And then she's saying, oh, no tea, but milk will be great. So then Jiji just showed up for his milk and then is back on his way. So Ursula really gives her what she needs, saying, you gotta get out of here for a bit, clear your head, and then just come back to my cabin with me so then I can draw you, because she wanted to draw her. So then she goes with her, and then they have that great heart-to-heart conversation where Ursula's telling her how, well, first though, when Kiki sees Ursula's painting and she's just so entranced by it and finds it so absolutely beautiful, and she sees the image of the girl. And then Ursula's saying, well, now that you're here, I can finally get your face right. And she's saying, oh, it's supposed to be me? And she's just so in awe of it, of her talent. So then when Kiki's sleeping over, and then they have that beautiful conversation where Ursula's telling her that she knows what Kiki's going through, that there was a time when she felt like she couldn't even draw anything, that she was losing her ability to draw. And Kiki's saying, oh, the same thing with me with flying, that for her, she says how I used to be able to fly without even thinking about it, and now I don't even know how I was able to do it. So then she's telling her that, well, maybe it's not because with her drawing, that I had to think about not how or why I draw this, but what inspires me. So by focusing too much on something, that is a detriment then. So that's a great thing, too, that this main theme of this movie, which really is about coming of age and Kiki finding herself and becoming an adult, since she is honing her skills as a witch. But it's just a great message in general, because I know for me personally, there are times when I feel like with my writing that no matter what I write, everything I write is not good. And we all have those feelings of self-doubt and disappointment with ourselves that, oh, why isn't this better? Like, why aren't my skills better? Or whether any skill, whether you're an artist, a musician, whether you cook, whether you are an athlete, when you feel like you're putting so much pressure on yourself and then it doesn't turn out the way you want it, then that can be all the more frustrating. So with Ursula simply telling her that you just have to find what inspires you to fly. And since for Kiki, when she was even confiding in Tombo saying, well, I used to love flying, but I'm not enjoying it as much now that it's just become work. So that too, with me personally, with writing, when it feels like work, when you're not just simply enjoying whatever it is that you love to do, then that can also put more pressure on yourself. So that's why it's important to really take a break, as Ursula says too. And just, what a powerful, inspiring message to simply don't be so hard on yourself. Something I'm telling myself too, and I'm telling you listening to this. Don't be so hard on yourself. Embrace what you love about yourself, and inspiration will strike when you most need it. So it's a matter of getting out of your own head and not listening to your own self-doubts, really trusting yourself so that you can regain your confidence. And then, as Kiki herself does, when she first goes back to that elderly woman, and it's just so sweet when she says, oh, I have a special delivery that needs to be delivered. Will you please open the box? And then it's just a cake that says Kiki. And again, Kiki on the broom with Jiji hanging on it. And she's just such a kind, sweet woman. And then Kiki kind of gets a little emotional. And it's just really sweet. And she's saying, oh, don't cry. And then she says, can you please deliver this to a young girl who was so kind to me, and then maybe also tell me when her birthday is so I can bake her another cake. And then Kiki says, and maybe you could tell me the woman's birthday so that I can repay her too with a gift. It's just absolutely so sweet. So that despite losing faith in herself and feeling like maybe she'll never fly again, and feeling like, what am I doing this for? And then this is her kindness and hard work being rewarded. So that's just such a absolutely sweet moment. And then her inspiration begins to come when first that dirigible is just turning upside down and everyone's trying to grab hold of it. And then all the people, just that whole group of people, one by one, they're just all falling off as the blimp is flying away. And then Tombo's still hanging on. So then Kiki's just freaking out like, oh my god, it's my friend, I have to go save him. And then when she is desperate and she sees the guy standing there with the push broom, and she says, please sir, I need to borrow your broom, because earlier when she was trying to fly, and then she ended up accidentally breaking her mother's broom, then she was trying to carve a new broom for herself. So then she just takes this broom, and then I love the moment when it's just focused on her and it's even silent for a bit before then she's like, come on, fly. And then she just takes off. She kind of hits a building here and there, but then she's able to fly again. And then she's flying, instead of flying too high, she's flying really low to the ground. She's just more in control than ever, because that's her inspiration, saving her friend Tombo, who is just always so happy to be around her. And when he's going to crash to the clock tower, and then when Kiki's there and she's screaming Tombo and he's screaming Kiki, and they're reaching for each other's hands, and then when he's slipping off the rope and then he just is falling, and then at the last second she's racing down and then she catches him, and then it's silent again for a second before everyone's cheering, she caught him, and it's just absolutely wonderful. She rescued him. It's just so overjoyous. And then something I forgot too at the very end that I absolutely loved and just brought a smile to my face, when all the reporters are around them, and then Tombo's going on and on. It's like, yeah, my friend Kiki saved me, and he's just so excited. And then Jiji calling Kiki's name, and she can understand him again, and then she's like, Jiji! And so then they reunite, and she says that adorable moment where she just kind of, he jumps on her shoulder, and she just kind of like snuggles against him. It's just so adorable. Oh my god. So I loved that because I forgot that they because they drifted apart. That was the thing. That's an interesting metaphor too, how Jiji is her best friend, and then when she goes through this crisis of losing her witching powers, that then she's unable to fly and she can't understand Jiji anymore. And so then it's like they are going their separate ways. So I was sad thinking, oh no, that's it, they just go their separate ways. I would have understood that though, because sometimes, more often than not really, your childhood friends are just that, your childhood friends, and then you grow up and you drift apart. Your lives just go separate ways. But that's why it just was so heartwarming and sweet when they reunited, even though that Kiki's now becoming closer with Tombo, and Jiji then all of a sudden he has a family. So the little 3 white kitties and a little black kitty that's just like him, like a little baby Jiji. So his children with Lily, so that's adorable. And then it's sweet too when Asono has the baby, when first they're all watching it on TV. You see Asono with her husband, you see that boy Kit, so all of them coming together to watch Kiki when she was going to save Tombo. And then afterwards when Kiki saves him, and then Asono's just saying, oh honey, it's time, call the hospital. He's like, oh, he like trips over the chair. But then when it's the credits, and then Kiki sends a letter to her parents, and they're reading the letter, and she's saying how sometimes I'm homesick, but I'm happy in this new city. And then her business is thriving again. They have the new metal sign now for Kiki's delivery service, and then she's flying, and Tombo is flying, so she's got her confidence back, and she's got her cheerful, happy disposition back. And then Jiji, and then when she's flying with Jiji, and then Gigi's little kitten, his little son, flying too with them, so adorable. And then one part too, when they're up on the roof together, her and Jiji, and she's just holding him, like they're snuggled together. That's so sweet. So I love that relationship, but I also love, really, you could argue the most important relationship in this movie is the relationship between Kiki and Ursula, because Ursula's the one who really tells her what she needs to hear in that moment, to look inside yourself to find that inspiration. So that's really sweet, and just, again, a lovely message about self-confidence and finding what truly motivates you and inspires you. And also, just another thing to mention, I love all the details in this movie. The scenery is beautiful, and just this whole relaxing feel with the interactions and just how the scenes kind of breathe, and it just feels so realistic. Even though it's a movie about a witch, but with these relatable themes. So just a truly lovely, beautiful film. And with that, that is going to conclude this week's episode of Storytelling Saga. You can follow the podcast on Facebook and Instagram at Storytelling Saga, as well as on Twitter at Storytell Saga. You can also send me any questions, comments, or writing prompts by leaving me a message in the contact section of storytellingsaga.com, or by sending me an email at storytellingsaga@gmail.com. Next week, I'll be discussing storytelling cliches, everything from hackneyed phrases to overused plot devices. Until then, thank you for listening, and remember, write what you love.